I'm doing everything. I'm letting people in. I'm
You're doing it all.
recording. I am going live. So first Zoom after show live. Let's see if that works. Go live.
Looks like I'm going to have to get a new computer so I can run video in the background.
Yeah, that's what I learned. That's what I learned the hard way. So now there's too much stuff going on. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, I can see you on Facebook saying that you need more video. All right. So this is live on Facebook. It is live in real life. Wait, that's confusing. Are we alive right now? We're alive.
Yep.
Sort of.
So and
virtually.
We're virtually alive and virtually dead. And we're waiting for our guest today, Rohit. So this is a different attempt to see. Here is Rohit. And I think what we can do as well is have Rohit take us through those trends, but let him just get on as well. There he is. All right, let me unmute you.
We can't hear him, yeah.
Wait, I think I muted it. There he is.
Yep.
So Rohit, you are now well, basically you haven't left your office. You haven't left Facebook because we're back live on Facebook.
Nice.
You're in Zoom. It's all very confusing, and this is just an attempt to do something different. You know, for me, I think what has kept me so energized is the constant experimentation. Whether it's I've sung before, I sung again today. You know, I don't mind. I like the idea of trying out new things and being prepared to fail and sometimes failing spectacularly. So this is an attempt to see whether people appreciate and connect to the after show and see what the after show is about. And so in keeping with this, well, first of all, you know, if anyone wants to ask Rohit a question based on our interview, our conversation, go for it. Otherwise, maybe Rohit can walk us through those trends that we highlighted.
Yeah, and good to see you guys in person. We all kind of know each other, I think, from various places, but haven't really shared the screen. So it's good to see your faces.
You too.
I feel like they're very shy today. Cat
Well,
got your tongue?
Live, we're scared.
We have to be more careful today, Joe.
Yeah.
But well, I'm recording the after show anyway, and it's going up on YouTube and Facebook. But you know, I guess now I figured out how to shut up Joey DeMont. So this is awesome.
Go. See, it worked.
So let me see if I share the screen. I think this was the first one, right? Revivalism. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about each one of these trends?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this one during the show, so we could probably go pretty fast on this one because I know some of the other ones we didn't really get to. But this one was
this is now Back to the Future, right?
Yeah, this is sort of turning the clock back and bringing back things that we used to know. And I think the one element of this we didn't talk about was a previous trend that laddered into this one as a mega trend, which is something I called strategic downgrading, which was choosing the downgraded version of something on purpose because it just worked better. A great example of that just being sometimes we want, especially now, to just have an audio call. Like, how nice would it be to just have a teleconference on the phone as opposed to having to be on the video all the time, which seems like an upgrade because, hey, we have video and we can watch each other and it's more real life. But actually, maybe sometimes we just prefer that downgraded version instead, right? Yeah, this one, Flux Commerce, had sort of two sides to it. One was just the way we pay for stuff has shifted. So subscription commerce, and as opposed to buying things, subscribing to a car instead of actually purchasing it. And then the flip side of it was the lines between industries. So coffee shops that are also banks. Crayola was making makeup Taco Bell opened a restaurant. I mean, these things used to be different categories. Apple opened a credit card, started a credit card. So Flux Commerce is partially about like these lines between industries that used to be sacred are now just falling off to the side.
I think maybe just a bit of a question on that is, I think I once heard something that the only successful example of convergence was the clock radio, or or the alarm. But I mean, there are many. We talk about in marketing a lot, right? The tyranny of line extension. This is not line extension. This is something completely different, right? This is actually completely different industries, and maybe that's what's intriguing about it.
Yeah, it is. And I think that the hero examples of that have really led people to start thinking about how that might work. Like Red Bull, I think, is probably one of the major hero examples of that, where like this thing used to be a beverage, and now I would argue that the brand of Red Bull has little to do with the beverage. It's a media and entertainment platform and company. And so people have looked at things like that and said, wow, maybe this thing that we did on the side could be the business. And that thing that we started with is just a minimal part of what we do.
I also think, by the way, that is what every company, I think Kevin Kelly calls it the becoming. It's what every company should strive aspirationally towards, which is the business that we began, what we started out. What if that could become the smallest thing we did? We do. Even if that never happens, it's just aspirationally, I think, a much better place to be. Very intriguing one. All right, human mode.
Yeah, human mode was sort of in reaction to, this is one that evolved interestingly in the pandemic, because before the pandemic, it was about how we were frustrated by all of the things that were digital, and we were longing for a detox. I mean, that whole digital detox thing was kind of a big thing that a lot of people were talking about. And as part of that, we looked at the human authentic experiences we could have, whether it was going to a sleepaway camp or dealing with a real person instead of an automated solution. And those were premium experiences, like something that we were willing to spend time and pay more to have. And now in this pandemic and afterwards, I think that there's so many ways that this is going to play out. So for example, with events, which I know has been a big part of many of our lives and businesses, when live events start coming back, the people who show up to them are going to be really, really there because they believe in it. Otherwise, they wouldn't risk showing up and waste their effort showing up. And so, yes, they're going to be smaller. And yes, I think most events are going to have hybrid components where you could participate virtually for those who don't want to go. But the people who are there are going to be super engaged while they're there, which is not always the case in an event. So imagine a future where everyone who shows up to a live event is super engaged and passionate and hungry to be there, as opposed to people who are just kind of showing up or going through the motions because that's just the thing that they had to go to or their boss forced them to go.
It might also, yeah, I mean, it also makes me think when we go back to the whole idea of like revivalism, that, our parents' generation would get dressed and put on a suit to go to an event, to any event. It was even to the cinema, right? I mean, if you think about going back 60, 70 years, that's what would happen. You get dressed up to go out to see a movie. And maybe I think the people would just appreciate that opportunity now in this post-COVID, hopefully reality, that it works both ways. It's not just how we treat our customers at these events, but also how our customers or how, kind of audience actually appreciates and what they put into the event too.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother used to wear gloves anytime she left the house.
Yeah, it's that's interesting, and I think there is definitely an element of us all kind of maybe doing that type of thing. The protective tech trend was written before the pandemic, but certainly has accelerated a lot. And this is an idea that says we expect technology and innovation to protect us and our environment more proactively. And so you see this in every level, whether it's drones patrolling the African safari to help prevent poaching, to your credit card sending you an alert saying, hey, I saw a double charge for $25. Did you mean to do that? Every element of these are examples of protective technology. I mean, even really more future-oriented stuff like thirsty concrete, concrete that retains water so that you can prevent flooding and then slowly releases it. I mean, these are all innovations that were happening before. And I think now protective tech is getting into the realm of protecting us in a pandemic. So face protections, wearable devices, things that can help us to stay healthier, air circulation shields, and reinventing the way that air circulates on an airplane, which is what several people have been working on. Like, these are all kind of further examples of this exact same thing.
It's probably also not a stretch to imagine wearable tech, or even just tech in general that is able to sniff out contagions and viral threats, and be able to, and even temperatures. I mean, that's a different kind of a protective tech, and I don't think it's that far-fetched. I mean, certainly the need for it almost seems like it's out of a sci-fi movie, but the need for it now is probably quite practical, right? More so than far-fetched.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a friend who builds energy efficient homes, net zero homes. So they produce as much energy as they as they need to run. And one of the installations in this home is an air system that takes the outside air and brings it in, but preheats it with the air that's in the house going out. So you only lose about 3 degrees in temperature, but you're filling the house with fresh air all the time. And they have the technology to test the air quality so that if there are any toxins in the house, it will filter that out with the fresh air that's coming in. And it's amazing. At first I thought, God, I just want to open the windows, and as you live in it, you realize that it's like living in a house with the windows open, but it's totally tight and sealed, and takes nothing you can heat the place with a hairdryer, almost literally. That's how many BTUs an hour it takes to maintain the temperature. So that protective technology is kind of cool, I think.
That's a great example. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, this last one was just how we, for a while now, we've had our identity going into in the digital realm. And so like our digital brand personality, whatever you want to call it, where like we represent who we are. But the amplified part of this, which I thought was really fascinating, is how we choose to be different people on different platforms. So my LinkedIn self is different from my Facebook self, is different from my Instagram self. And when you put all of these things together and combine it with my real self in the real world, my identity becomes something more than just one thing. And the way that I curate it also becomes more important to me, both now and later, in terms of my legacy and my digital legacy and all the things that happen when I eventually kick it after years and years of creating all this content, and what I leave behind and what that says about me. And whether for younger people, the person that they present themselves to be at 15 years old, how does that relate to the person they present themselves at 50? Because I think, all of us are lucky. Like, we don't have that social media trail from when we were 15, whereas the kids today, they do.
What was that, you, Joey?
Yeah, thank God.
I was thinking.
I'm so happy I don't have this trail. I would be unemployable had I actually been recorded in college and the things that I used to do. I was such a jackass for so many years. It's just the kids today having to put up with all of that, and some embarrassing video that their friends did, and now it lives on ad infinitum on the internet. That would just freak me out.
Well, and the good news is that some platforms, I saw that Facebook is allowing you to go back in time and delete a bunch of stuff from a certain era. So
that's cool.
Some of it may actually be a little easy. You never really delete something online because
there's
still probably a trail of it somewhere, but at least to be able to delete some of the stuff that's easily findable is significant, right?
Joey's thinking like
But
Joe's thinking like birth to June 17th, 20. I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. In fact, Joey, you know, you're the opposite because you wrote a book that really kind of takes all of that and puts it together and creates context and connection, you know,
Joey wrote a
and tells
book?
that story. Apparently.
Who knew?
When is it out, Joey?
August or September, depending on editors. So
You're going to have to come on Corona TV and talk about it, I think.
I have no problem doing that.
You know, Rohit, the amplified, I was thinking, you know, you could write an entire book on amplified identity because there's so much other stuff going on as well. Like, for example, the fact, I mean, how you began talking about the trend, that we are different, we have a different authentic voice on different platforms. You know, my voice on Facebook is very different to my voice on Instagram, is very different, you know, to my professional voice when you see me on stage. Sometimes I swear, sometimes I don't, sometimes I'm political, sometimes I'm not. Does that make me schizophrenic? Maybe, maybe not. And then I think what we see like our kids doing now is they have multiple profiles on the same platform, which is because they're better multitaskers anyway. And that's another thing that's also like mind-blowing for us older folk. You know, we can barely manage one Instagram profile, let alone 4 or 5 or 6. And then of course, you know, we're idiots enough, like we end up probably posting the wrong thing to the wrong profile.
Yeah, sometimes professionally too. I mean, you had all those horror stories of people who accidentally posted something onto the professional Twitter account for the company they were managing instead of their own personal Twitter account because they just screwed it up. So yeah, it's a learned behavior, right? I mean, imagine imagine the mental gymnastics that goes into saying, well, I'm going to post something on my Facebook self for grandma that's different than my Facebook self for my cousins, that's different from my Facebook for when I want to be online, but I want to like use that for all the brand stuff so that it doesn't cloud all my other stuff.
Yeah, one thing that intrigued me by Revivalism, the whole idea behind your show, what you're doing now with your new StreamYard, this is you, Ro, and then you're doing the podcast. With all of your knowledge of trends and what's happening, I've read a couple different articles about podcasts increasing based on what you mentioned, which is that it's this very parasocial relationship where you can do it on a walk, you can do it, you know, obviously no one's community anymore, but it's just kind of your thing versus, and then obviously I think some Zoom fatigue. So people just being, you know, sick of this, they're like, I don't have to be as plugged in if I just have something in my ear. Are you seeing that trending upward in that as it relates to podcasts being more magnetic to audiences today?
Yeah, I think that they're for different moments in time, right? I mean, if you're, you can listen to a podcast when you're walking the dog. You can listen to a podcast when you're cooking dinner. You can listen to a podcast when you're driving. I mean, these are all situations where you can't watch a video.
Right.
And that's not based on who you are. That's just because you're human. Like, so, I mean, there are situations in our life where we want to be listening to something and maybe learning and maybe not music. And so I think part of it is just related to the fact that we always have our devices with us. And so it's become easier to fill that time, and people are filling it with podcasts. And part of the growth is just from that. And I think the other part is probably what you said, which is fatigue of having all of our senses needing to be involved. And so therefore, let me just listen because I can, maybe I just find it easier to do that.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It comes back to revivalism, except this time it's kind of, it's podcasting and how that has become, I don't want to say the dominant platform, but certainly the growth, you know, it's weird. We streamies, you know, actually doing video, we're almost like kind of retro in a weird way. We're almost, we're the emerging, this is like emerging media now, which is video. I mean, it's crazy thought, right? That video, the ultimate, the 30-second spot, video is now the challenger and audio is the market leader. I don't think that that's a stretch at all to say.
Yeah, and I think that what's interesting now, and we're still trying to figure out, is, I mean, just look at this Zoom after show, for example. Aside from us having the benefit of seeing one another, there's no reason somebody would need to watch this versus listen to it. It was mainly an audio conversation. It's not like I showed anything or you showed anything. So I think that there's more content like that where people will say, oh, you know, that's just, I don't miss anything by listening instead of watching. You can't just listen to Game of Thrones. You have to watch it, right? Like there is stuff that you have to watch, but this type of content right here is not like that. And I think we should be honest about that and say, look, it's okay. Like, just listen to it. It's good. It's all good.
Although, I mean, I'll say, and that is, I was having this conversation the other day, right? The first television commercials were radio-like. They were like live, almost like a live read. They had entrances and exits on stage. They were, you know, it took a while for it to find its form and its feet. The way I'm looking at the after show is, so your point obviously is taken. The goal here is more than just something. In fact, whereas Corona TV could and is a podcast, there's something different about the after show, as probably Steve Garfield would say as well. It is the fact that, I mean, I don't watch this looking at my ugly face on the big screen. I'm watching all of you. And during the time of COVID, it's actually been very powerful, which is, you know, the ability for us to see each other and connect with one another and have that little bit of warmth. But to your point, it can't just be, it could be a panel, right? It could be a radio panel. So when you start playing with things like, you know, hold on a second, let me share my screen, let me show you something, or let me play you a piece of music. I think there is some advanced functionality, and I think actually, I think that long-term is what Zoom is going to become, I don't want to say known for, but better known for, which is that we can do more with it.
Yeah, but I think your point, the way I saw this after show is it's less about the, I mean, sorry to say this, but it's less about the watching audience and more about us being able to gather together with one another. That's why it's the after show. Like, you come if you want to see each other. So it should be video because we want to see each other. Does someone who's watching or listening need to see us? Maybe not. But is that really the point? Like, to me, the after show was a gathering place for anyone who wanted to come and see one another and just hang out.
I think that's a good point. And I think that Steve would probably say that the after show has as much value as a podcast, a standalone podcast, as it does as a video. So just something to think about. I don't know if you're doing that, but
here's what's interesting, which is we just got joined by David Cushman, and I haven't come across his name in years. David, that doesn't mean that you need to decloak, come off video, or you just did. So
yeah, I'm happy to say hi. Hi everyone.
Hello,
welcome.
Hello.
So how did you find out about the after show today, for example?
Okay. Okay. So I haven't heard the rest of the conversation, so apologies. I was. I'm going to have a chat with a friend via Messenger very shortly. I happen to be on Facebook. I've seen quite a lot of your shows flowing through my stream, and I thought, well, I got 10 minutes, so I'll come and see what's occurring with Joe. And as you say, it's a long time since our paths have crossed, so interested to see where you're at.
So I would say mission accomplished today by making it live on Facebook.
Yeah, right.
David at 10 minutes, and now, and the funny thing is, you know, Rohit, part of this experiment, this beautiful experiment called Corona TV, is we're kind of like figuring it out as well, this little community, which is, how do we grow the after show? Should we grow the after show? Should we even do an after show? What format does it live in, and what does it look like? What benefit does it? A lot of this comes back to the soliloquy, right? Which is asking not why at the beginning, but now what? So, you know, it brought David on, which is kind of awesome. And are you drinking a beer there? I mean, I know it's nighttime there. Can I have some?
You're very welcome to, but yeah, this is one of the problems with virtual beers, isn't it? You can't actually share them. We did do, some friends and I managed a wine tasting, but that took some organising, to be honest. It took deliveries and leaving them on people's doorsteps. So it was a fairly localised affair, but that's the best we could do with virtual alcohol at the moment. But you're very welcome to share my San Miguel.
I feel like we could probably do like a professional like bullshit bingo drinking game where we all had a bottle of tequila and we were like doing a watch party, watching some webinar, and every time certain keywords, there's got to be some creativity there that we can bring to the table.
You know, interestingly enough, like the place when the whole pandemic started and I was doing Zoom meetings, I would say that more than half of them were drinking hangout sessions as opposed to professional Zoom things, for me at least. So like that's how I started on this platform, by hanging out, having a drink. My wife's birthday was entirely on Zoom because it was during the pandemic. So we had all of our friends kind of coming in at various points, and like that was early on in my Zoom experience. So that's kind of where I had started. So I'm happy to bring it full circle and start to grab some beers. I don't have one with me right now.
But... Well, you know, I do Corona cocktails. So, you know, if you ever want to come back on the show, you don't need an excuse.
Yeah, let's find a appropriate amount of time when people won't be sick of me, and then I'll come back and do it. Yeah.
They could never be, because you're continuously innovating. Well, I'm gonna shut us down in a few minutes, but I will now do, and this is live on Facebook, so I can say my standard message to Rohit and today to David, and actually to Chip. So I'm going to speak to all three of you. So to Rohit, you are always welcome here, and you are not just a guest on my show. You are a friend. You are a business partner, and you're a guy that continues to inspire me. And my standard line is, you can come for the alcohol, you can come for the guests. You don't have to come for me. And I hope no authorities ever come for me either. But I always say, like, just see who the guest is, and if the guest is intriguing, you can join us. David, you are always welcome as well. Chip came on for the first time the other day, and he's back. And the beautiful thing about it is you don't have to decloak, you don't have to contribute if you don't want to. It is quite social, and it is quite intimate, and it is quite meaningful, even though we're live on Facebook today. Yeah, mission accomplished because David came in, which makes me feel great.
Thank you.
All right, so I am gonna first of all, I'm gonna figure out how the hell do I get off Facebook now. Oh yeah, stop live stream. That's done. I'm gonna stop the recording. That's done.